Hello again. Today I'm going to make a summer berry tray bake, and it's a really useful way of using just a small handful of berries that you might have in the fridge, and that can be either blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, or a mixture of them. See what you think. Now the first thing to do is prepare the tin, and for this I've got something that's about the size of a Swiss roll tin, possibly a little bit bigger, and mine measures 32 centimetres by 22, and that works out in inches to 12.5 by 8.5. And to line it, you need to sit it on a piece of greaseproof paper. To mark the corners with a pencil, and then use a pair of scissors to cut from the point of the paper to where you made your mark. So I've cut from the point into the mark on all four corners, and I've folded the flaps in, and the next thing to do is get it into the tin. It's always a good idea just to put a little bit of oil or fat of some sort into the bottom of your tin, because that holds the paper still while you're getting it into position. So just spread it around and then lift your paper in. You're going to have to just manoeuvre the corners so that they go round each other. There we are. And that's our tin done. Okay, so the oven is on to gas mark 4. First the oven, then the tin, that's done. And then we can start to mix. So I'm going to put this out of the way and get the ingredients. So you'll need a big mixing bowl next of all, and into that you need to put 150 grams of soft margarine and 150 grams of caster sugar. And then we're going to give that a whiz with a mixer. You can do it by hand if you want to, but you know, it's a lot quicker to do it this way. So get ready. Right, so that's our caster sugar and margarine cream together. And the next thing to do is to put in 3 eggs. Now, I like to put them in one at a time because you really don't know if you're going to get any shell in there. And this way, you can just check and take it out. So into a bowl. Nothing in there, back and going. And just do the same thing with the other 2. If you give it one jolly... Oh, there's a piece gone in there. Oh, bother. The easiest way to get it out is to use a piece of shell. There it is, I've got it. Right, okay, so that's our second one. Just goes to show that you cannot be too careful. And then the third one, we're okay with that one. Good. So they get mixed in next. And now, surprise ingredient, we're going to put in the zest of a lemon with the flour. So, I've started to take the zest off this lemon. I'm going to just have to move that over a bit. And the zest is the very, very outer yellow edge of the lemon. You see where I've taken it off? So get as much zest as you can. And what that does is to just freshen up the taste of the cakey bit. Now I've used the smallest holes on my grater, this side here, and you will probably find that there's an awful lot of lemon zest stuck inside, so give it a tap. Can you see that? The best way to get that out, and I'm right-handed so I've got to turn it around, is to use a knife and scoop it up. And that is really pretty good. Right, okay, so in goes the zest. And later on we're going to use some juice. That's for the icing. So we've got our zest in there, and we're going to add the flour, self-raising flour, and it's actually 175 grams. It's a little bit more than you would expect. So that goes in, and we beat it again. Now at this stage, I'm going to add just a tablespoon of milk. I've got my British Standard measuring spoons, and that's just 1 tablespoon of milk. We've got extra flour, so this will just loosen it a little tiny bit. And we'll mix that in with the mixer. there we are, that's our cake made. So, get as much off there as I can. The next thing to do is to get the cake mixture into the tin. So about a third of it into the bottom. And spread it over. It's not an awful lot, but it's just to help the berries from not sort of going too mushy at the bottom. Just to push that off. And then here come the berries. Now I've got some raspberries and I've got some blueberries. What you need to do is just try and share them around fairly evenly to make sure that everybody gets a little bit of everything. If you're going to use strawberries, cut them up so they're not too big. And in total you need getting on for 200 grams of fruit. Now if it's 190 it's fine, if it's 205 it's fine. It's really not a precise measurement. And I have washed these and I've left them just to dry a little bit so they're not too mushy. I'm just going to tip a little bit more into that. I want to get that squishy raspberry in. So a few blueberries. And save some for the top. Let's get one in that corner. There we are. Now the rest of the cake goes on. And this is not something that's got to be done precisely. So if you find that you've got raspberries that have moved around, or that you are getting a bit of a muddle with your cakey mixture, don't worry. As long as you can just get it on the top, and then we'll spread it out. And then the last thing we do is put the remaining blueberries on. I'll put the bowl down. A bit more spreading. So you can see how they move now at this stage, because it's not a huge amount of cake, but it's going to rise, you see. So there'll be plenty at the end. There we go. Can cover those up. Right. Whoops, it's flying everywhere today, I don't know why. And on go the remaining blueberries. Again, just try and be a little bit fair with this if you can. And that's it, that's ready for the oven. Now it's going to spread out, fill the tin, and it'll rise and the blueberries will sink and they'll burst and they go all jammy in the oven. So this is going to cook now for about 40 minutes, all right? Middle of the oven, sideways on, so it goes across, and I'll set the timer for 40 minutes. And while it's cooking, we're going to make some icing. Now, while the Traybake's cooking, we can make some icing, and for that we're going to use some lemon juice and icing sugar. So we need to cut the lemon in half, and we only need the juice of half the lemon. The other half you can use for something else, put it into some water or something like that, or gin and tonic, I don't know. So, juice of half the lemon, and to this we're going to add sieved icing sugar. And it's going to be approximately between 50 and 75 grams. The thing is that you can't tell how much juice you're going to get, so you can't be exact with this. It's all about the consistency of the icing, to be honest. So, I'm going to pour that into my little dish. And then we start to add sieved icing sugar. Now I've got a little tiny strainer and a large jar of icing sugar. And it really is worth sieving it. If you don't, you'll find you're going to have very lumpy icing. So a little strainer or a bigger sieve, and just get that through there, and then you'll start to stir. And you keep going until you've got something that's the consistency of thick double cream that you'll be able to just drizzle over the top. Now, in school, children are often tempted to tip the lumps in. Well, don't do that. There's no point sieving if you're going to tip the lumps in. Just keep going till it's all through the sieve. Now I've added 4 dessert spoons of sieved icing sugar, and it's not enough yet. It's going to be, it's often a lot more than you imagine really, but in total probably about 75 grams. It's hard to be exact with this, it's the consistency that you're looking for. So this is dessert spoon number 5, and I'll show you how it's still quite runny actually. Let me just get this pushed through here. There we are. If I stir that in, it really is not creamy enough yet, because if it's too wet, too thin, it will simply soak into the top of your cake. So you want it to sit on the top, and it's got to be fairly thick for that. So that's 5 dessert spoons, and I'm going to keep going, and I'll tell you how many I needed when I get more of the consistency that I'm looking for, okay? Right, 7 dessert spoons, and I only use a dessert spoon because it's the right amount to go into my little sieve. If I did a tablespoon, it would probably go over the edges. So a dessert spoon is just a more convenient size of measure. Now can you see that that's getting quite a bit thicker and creamier? That's what you're aiming for, something that's thick enough not to just soak into the cake, and the cake's got to be cold when you put it on. So this will sit and wait quite happily. A bit stuck to the spoon. Do you know, I might just put a bit more in. I'd rather have it too thick than too thin. And if it becomes much too thick, I've always got the other half of lemon to add just a drop or 2 from. So we're on 7.5 dessert spoons now. And the thing about using lemon juice is that it sharpens up the flavour, because obviously icing sugar is very, very sweet. And you can mix it with water, but it doesn't do an awful lot for the flavour. But lemon juice just gives it that little hint of sharpness, which is, I think, much nicer. So you see how thick that's getting. I think I'm going to stop at that. There we are. That's it. Okay, so that'll wait now until the cake's done. The timer's gone off, and the cat's in the way, but she'll soon move. So let's have a look. Off you go, Min. Shoo, shoo. Oh yes, look at that. That looks good. I'll just turn the oven off. Now, it's difficult to tell if it's cooked in terms of where you might normally put a skewer in. You wouldn't do that with this, because if you hit a blueberry, it's going to come out wet. So it's all about the touch. It's very firm to the touch. It's crusty at the edges, and it's shrunken away from the sides of the tin. That's how I know it's done. You can see that it's risen up, and it's sort of hidden the blueberries. You can see they're there, and you can see raspberries around the edge. So the next thing to do is leave that to just get absolutely cold, and then I'll put the icing on. But because it's a hot day, I'm going to cover it with a piece of muslin. If you haven't got muslin, use something like a tea towel, but just keep it protected from wasps and things like that. Now our cake has had a good hour, hour and a half to cool down. It's been covered because of flies and wasps this time of the year, and I'm going to take it out of the tin and just put it onto the cooling rack, and then just peel back the edges of the paper. And the best way to tell if something's cold is to use the back of your hand, because it's more sensitive, and that really is cold. So now we take our icing, give it a stir, load up your spoon, and just drizzle the icing backwards and forwards. And it doesn't matter if you get blobs in some places, it just doesn't matter. Try and go right to the edge though, because the people who get the edge slices want their fair share as well. And then go in the opposite direction. And you can keep going as long as you like to use up your icing. There we are. And then you just need to cut it into whichever size pieces you want to have. Typically from something this size, I would cut it into 4 this way, and then probably 6 or 8 that way. So 24 or, can't do the maths at the moment, 32. Quite a lot of pieces. So enjoy. Because it's got fruit in, it needs to be eaten fairly quickly, because if it's a warm day, the moisture from the fruit will eventually become a bit mouldy. So a couple of days at best, really. So it's not something to keep in the tin for very long. But I hope you like this one. Have a go. Let me know how you get on.